I'd like to welcome everybody to the July meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. As always, we'll start our meeting with the prayer and pledge, and Gloria Bonner has agreed to lead us in that. Gloria, thank you.
Thank you. May we bow, please? Father in heaven, as servant leaders in this community, help us to remember that the life of the community is a gift, and the health and vitality of this community is a blessing, and the potential and capacity to make a difference in the lives of others is evidence of your divine grace. Help us to look inward and outward with a servant heart. These blessings we pray in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
The pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Gloria.
Compliments to Gloria. That's one of the prettiest prayers I've ever heard.
That was a good one.
Always.
All right, everybody should have received their packet from Mitzi earlier in the week. Contained in that was the minutes from our June meeting. This time we'll entertain any changes or corrections that need to go into those minutes, and if there are none, a move or approval.
I move approval of the minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you, Mitzi. Okay, we've got a pretty brief agenda today, so it should be a fairly efficient meeting. The first item on it is a discussion of our comprehensive master plan. Kevin from Reagan Smith's here. Angela, I'll turn it over to you, let you introduce him, and we'll go from there.
As a part of our comprehensive master plan for Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation, we are going strong. Very pleased with the kickoff process and turning to this group as our steering committee. So what we hope to do today was kind of give an update, get some feedback and direction from this group, leading us into our first public meeting coming up on Monday. We'll tell you all more about that. Kevin Gunther is with Reagan Smith, and he is our project manager for this process.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Angela. Pleasure to be here. I heard the word short and efficient, so that's not to put pressure on.
Not short, just efficient. If you want to add the short.
Right. So, as Ms. Jackson had mentioned, we are in the process of our master plan. This is a 10-month process, and we're about 3 months in. And what we've been doing is we've had meetings with stakeholders and focus groups. We have gone out and done a very thorough inventory of the existing parks. We've talked to the Park and Recreation staff, and that's all been very good. We are still kind of pulling that information together and starting to assess it. And the purpose of this master plan is really looking 20 years out. So we want to be very thorough at the front end to get an understanding of what we have. As we look at this, we want to look at not only existing facilities, existing programs, of course, a possibility of future acquisitions or future parks. But beyond that, we want to look at what kind of partnerships can we establish? What kind of funding opportunities? What type of tourism opportunities? And then I think also of high level of importance, how do we continue to keep our operating and maintenance working in addition to the new things that we add? So those are all pieces of this master plan process that we'll start to unveil as we go forward. What I would like to do today is really make this a discussion. I don't have any graphs or boards or any kind of summaries at this stage. That is yet to come. But I really want to engage you, the Park Commission, as our steering committee. And what we always ask when we start doing a project like this, we identify what is the steering committee for. Okay, there's 3 things I'm asking of you. One is, of course, input and feedback, and you're in a great position to do that as the Park Commission. The other is, really getting your constituents plugged into the public input process. So I'm going to highlight that we have a visioning session next Monday, July 16th, at River Oaks Community Church from 5:30 to 7:30. And I'm strongly encouraging that you would try to attend that. And in addition to yourself attending, would hope that you could beat the drum and get as many of your constituents and your peeps out there to plug into the process. And what we're going to do at that visioning session is we will very briefly cover some of the existing inventory that we start to gather, and we will talk about a little bit of the 2035 plan, what's already been kind of gathered that we're analyzing. But more importantly, we're going to get people to sit down at individual tables and really start to give us feedback. And we like to document that in a very informal setting. It's not going to be about me presenting or our team presenting. It's going to be about people in smaller groups, literally with a map and a marker and a notebook in hand, and giving us very direct feedback that we can document. We've found that to be a very powerful tool, a very effective tool. If you're in a setting where you're kind of sitting around that smaller table, you feel like you have a voice, and it's not like there's going to be one or two people that get up and really give their feedback and take the whole time frame. This is that chance for each and every individual, to feed into that. So that gathering the constituent base that is the second part that we ask of our steering committee. And the third part is, of course, when we're done with all this, our hope is that we have a plan that the community and that you as the Park Commission and the city fully embraces. We want you to be part of that group that spearheads this and heralds it going forward into the future. We don't want this to be a document that just sits on the shelf and collects dust. We want this to be a living, breathing, inspiring master plan that you will take with you in hand whenever you're talking with people about the future of Parks and Recreation in Murfreesboro. So we are in the process, as I said, about 3 months in. What we've done to date is we've had those interviews with the focus groups, some of the steering committee and staff. We've also been using GIS as a mapping tool, which really kind of looks at the demographics and the raw data, what I call the quantitative data. And then we are also going to be releasing a survey, an online survey, that will be something that you can link to, but also that citywide anybody in the public can link to. So keep your eyes out for that coming in the future. So before I actually get into some direct questions as the steering committee, I want to make sure I've communicated well as kind of where we're at in the process. If any of you have any questions about the process, the schedule, or our role as a consulting team, love to hear from you.
Anybody have any questions? Kevin, before?
Okay. Well, of course, as I said, this is kind of a dialogue today, so at any point, please feel free to bring up whatever kind of surfaces in your heart or mind as we discuss these things. So I'm going to ask 3 questions here with the commission and the steering committee, and they don't have to all be answered today. I'm putting them out on the table today to start the dialogue. So I want to make sure that, and I believe Angela and Nate, if they have any direct things, they can send those right to us as a team. Is that right? Or would you rather filter those through yourself first, or what are your thoughts?
Either way is fine.
Okay. So, part of our role is going to be to just collect that data as it surfaces. So if you have anything that you want to send directly to my email, kgunther@reagansmith.com, that'll be one tool that I can continue the dialogue with you beyond today. So the first question I'm going to put out there is, what do you see as the greatest assets and opportunities that we have in the Parks and Recreation facilities and programs here in Murfreesboro? What do you see as some of our gems or some of the things that rise to the surface in your minds? I'll give you a little chance to ponder that a bit.
Well, I'll go first. There's no doubt that Patterson Park, Sportscom, the soccer fields, the greenway system, and I shouldn't have started listing because somebody's going to feel left out. But
Right.
but we've got so many gyms within our park system that improve the quality of life significantly. And people often say, you know, I came to Murfreesboro because I like it here. And one of the responses is, well, what do you like about it? And their response is generally, you know, I like our park system, I like our schools, I like the safety that I feel in this community. And so I think it's very important that we consider to continue to make sure that our parks provide the services that are requested. And we need to go out and obviously you're doing that. I mean, I want you to make sure that you mention where it is and Monday night and everything 2 or 3 times during this presentation. But because we want public input, because it's not about us providing services just to provide services. We want to provide the services that the public expects and feels that they have a need for. And whether it's a mountain bike trail or whether it's just a hiking trail or if it's just a place to go for peace and solitude. I think it's important that we continue to make sure that our parks are available and make sure that we've got them open during the hours that it's convenient for the public to use them, and that we continue to focus on running the department as a whole and the service as efficiently as possible. So there may be situations where, obviously with the swimming pools and stuff like that, there's already current fees, but there may be additional opportunities where we've purchased land and stuff in areas that where we've acquired a great amount of land that we can go back and look and say, okay, we've got this land here. Is there any of this property that has a better use than park property? And what I mean by that is if you look at Sportscom and Memorial Boulevard right now, I think the best use of that property along Memorial Boulevard is retail, but right behind it is perfect for park. And I think that provides a good buffer. You know, I would think it would be nice almost if we had a Chick-fil-A on the front side of every park that we have in Murfreesboro, because I mean, so many people that go to the park use those retail businesses, and so I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at potentially paying for some of the amenities in the park by being able to sell off a little bit of the roadfront property that is so valuable. And so I think there's some options and things that we can look into, but certainly we want to make sure we entertain the public's ideas as well.
Thank you, Mr. Smotherman.
I think our greatest asset, along with what you have shared with us, which is so important, I think our greatest asset lies in the people that support and provide the leadership as it relates to the operation. They truly represent the heart and soul of what this community is all about.
Stole mine.
Second on the people. In this.
Also, the programs, that we have. I mean, they're just numerous, programs, and whether it's athletics or theater or education, but if we'll just keep looking to broaden those, I think that's a great asset.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so to kind of echo back, I think some of the things I've heard, the quality of life that our Parks and Recreation brings to the city is definitely something I think that's recognized and valued as a very strong asset. The facilities, the soccer and greenways, soccer complex, greenways, Adams Complex, Miracle Field, as you mentioned, Mr. Smotherman, I'm sure, not to leave anybody out, but the programs that have been developed and the facilities are pretty top notch. Sounds like there's some possibilities we want to think about in terms of our land assets and just evaluating what ways we can not only stack uses within those land values, but is there a way to leverage some of that for possible improvements? And then, of course, the people, and I'm going to include the staff in that, the Park and Recreation staff and the city staff, as well as the sense of community we have here, I think are strong assets. Is a pretty good summary. Okay. And you've stole a little bit of my thunder, because I was going to highlight some of the key things that have started to surface as we've looked at this existing analysis. And the number one item that I was going to touch on is we have a very strong park and recreation system in the city. We have our existing system is actually, when you compare it to communities of similar size or similar dynamics and demographics, we've done a good job as a city of putting together a pretty good base to work with. That's not only the facilities that I mentioned, but also the programs. I think, as you had mentioned, Mr. Miller, our programs cover a full range of ages. That's not always the case in every community. You know, things like the Miracle Field are really an example of how we've tried to make recreation accessible to all residents and visitors. So we're starting with a really good base. That's one thing that came out loud and clear as we were doing our inventory and really digging in. And I will tell you, the consultants on our team from Equinox made note of that to me. They said, you know, as they've looked at communities nationwide, you know, they said, we've got a good basis to start with. Now, that's not to say we don't want to grow. It's not to say we can't improve or expand. You know, but it's encouraging to know that we're off to a very good start, and we've got a good base to work off. The next question I'm going to pose is what are the greatest challenges that you might see with our Parks and Recreation system here in the city?
I know what you're going to say. Keeping up with the growth.
Would our financial
Keeping up with
consultant
the-
please chime in?
Keeping up with the growth and paying for it.
Yeah, you know, one thing I will say about that, and that's obvious, that's probably the obvious answer, is the cost, you know, but one of the, digging into that a little bit deeper would be, it seems like the increased cost of developing a park, the rate of that increase has been more substantial than the rate of growth of our revenues.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's where really the rub is. If, you know, we can deal with increased cost on some things by growing, but if that rate of increase is much higher than our rate of increase on our revenues through our population growth, it makes it tough. I mean, that's what makes it less sustainable to keep doing it the way we've done it in the past. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like. It's, you know, if you just simply take a park that we had built 15 or 20 years ago and look at what that looks like today to try to build the same thing,
Right.
it seems more like 3 or 4 times more rather than 2 times more. And so we've got to figure out a way to address it. I mean, you know, that's just the part, that's just the reality of it. And you know, I think what we got to do is get it out in front of us and see what the best, you know, have you help us with how those options might look down the road, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever those options might look like. I'd certainly love to see some of the choices or ideas.
So part of what I'm hearing, and you know, I completely concur with this, one of the bigger challenges is we're growing as a city, we're growing as a community. Part of the reason we're growing is because we got a quality of life, right? We've got great facilities. Well, how do we continue to expand those facilities within the current the climate of costs outpacing some of the revenue? And that, you know, I will say that is not something unique to our city. That is something we as consultants see across the board. But it's a very real issue. You know, the costs, times are good. The cost of doing things, materials, labor, opportunity, is all high, but at the same time, the effects we get from the dollars that we have is continuing to become a challenge. So, any other challenging issues or challenges that you see rising to the top?
I really foresee one of the larger challenges of the future is not just being able to continue to develop more park, but to maintain and enhance the current parks that we have. But we don't want to see us go into certain areas and develop new parks and forget the fact that some of the older parks still need attention and maintenance and upkeep and stuff. So it's really challenging to look at to not look at the city's situation financially and recognize that although the city's not in bad shape, the city's in good shape, and I think financially in a couple of years we'll be in a much better position than we are today. But the city has been, and I'll credit the city's leadership up until this point. I think they've been very proactive in purchasing land and acquiring properties for expanded growth. We know as the city continues to grow, those properties will become less and less available, and that generally means they're more and more expensive.
Right.
So the fact that we've positioned ourselves, I think, quite well with the property that we own, we also need to make sure that we continue to look at opportunities. Mountain bike trail would be an example of to use a older park for a new function and to increase our services within the realm without having to go out and buy new property. So, and the fact that we do have property, I think, just on Franklin Road and the West Park as well. I think that there's still substantial growth within the Parks and Recreation Department, but I do think that we need to continue to focus not just forward but backwards as well.
Kevin, I'll mention one more thing.
Yes,
Doesn't
sir.
have anything to do with money. Well, I guess ultimately it does. At some point or another, a few years ago, we kind of gone down this road, and I hope this isn't. If we decided it wasn't the right road to go down, then maybe we did. I just don't know about it. But we looked at partnering up with some schools and doing some park property on some of the school property that exists, and that kind of it went away, and it may have gone away for a really good purpose that I just don't know. But if that's something that's still a possibility out there, that certainly is some. I guess going alongside of what Eddie was saying as far as making use of some resources that we already have, if that's still a viable option, might want to explore that too. As part of this.
Right. So yeah, that is partnering with the schools is definitely something we're evaluating. Now, we did have a good discussion with Linda Gilbert and just continue that dialogue. So that is one of the partnering opportunities we will look at.
I also think it's important that we're committed to maintaining that vibrancy and the intellectual vitality of the community through efforts such as partnerships and best practices in Parks and Rec. And that will also lead to enhancing the skills through professional development opportunities for those in charge of making those decisions and creating those opportunities.
Right. So capitalizing on that,
Yes.
the existing partners that also, not only in terms of just our facilities, but going back to the people that have that intellectual capital, the vibrancy of, I think, an example would be the arts community, that is very much plugged into Parks and Recreation, and I think that will definitely be a challenge. How do we lasso that together? How do we keep lassoing that together and realizing it's there, but also realizing that there are limitations to what a Park and Recreation staff can do. There are limitations to how much your operating and maintenance budget can perform. So I liked your words, Dr. Bonner, of vibrant intellectual capital and vitality, yes. All right.
I've been around a long time.
Excellent. Any other challenges that anybody would like to highlight before I go to the next question? This is my last question coming up. Okay. And this is one that what I always like to do is get people to put themselves into a time machine when we're talking about these plans, because we're talking about 20 years out. Now, to some people, that seems like a short time. To others of us that have been around for a little while, we realize it's not necessarily that long. But when you think about how much has changed in the last 20 years in Murfreesboro, if we put ourselves back 20 years ago and think about where we're at now, I want you to frame this question in that idea that you were to literally step out of a time machine 20 years from now. What would be the one thing from the effort of this master plan that we did in 2018 and 2019, if you could step out and say, yeah, I remember back when we were doing that master plan, what would be the one thing you would hope to see come to fruition that would be something that would truly happen from this plan?
That we've won every President's Cup from then.
Every President's Cup. No. Think large and aim high.
If you look 20 years back, in the 90s, the focus was always on visionary. And then in the 21st century, the focus was on strategic planning and strategic efforts. So I think for us moving 20 years forward, we have to start with intentionality. That focus is going to be extremely important.
So, if I'm hearing you right, Dr. Bonner, part of what you would hope to see is that we had intentionally set our path over the last 20 years. It wasn't a happenstance thing, but we had anticipated where we wanted to be.
I got a big word.
Yes, sir.
I can't wait to hear this.
It's 4 letters. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's innovative. I think that we were, if we look back 20 years we're 20 years from now looking back, that we were innovative in the way that we approach this situation that we're in right now, and that we were able to put together ideas and execute those ideas in a way that was not just good old-fashioned the way it's always been done, but that we were innovative in our thinking and were able to achieve things that were 20 years ahead of our time, frankly.
Excellent. So I hear intentionality and I hear innovative.
It also started with an I.
Yeah.
I-N.
And I don't know how you packed innovative into 4 letters, but that was really incredible.
There's no I in team, Rick.
Yeah, but there is in win.
He's on a roll.
You look at Murfreesboro and you look at the average age in Murfreesboro, which I think we're in the very low 30s right now as far as average age. And so I assume that's probably part of our target market, but I know we've done a tremendous job of focusing on people with special needs, people who just need meeting space. I mean, you look at Bradley Academy, you look at the Discovery Center where we're trying to use our facilities as educational. And so it's not just about physical, but I do think that as especially some of us age, we really, I know Parks and Rec doesn't run the senior center, but I know when it was over at Patterson Park, I was over at the senior center the other day, and one of the comments was how much they enjoyed Patterson Park while they were transferred over there and for the remodeling. And so I think it's important that we continue to look at opportunities where we can get more people engaged, especially those who are later in life and perhaps aren't using our facilities as much because they don't play basketball and they don't play soccer and they don't play football. But I do think it's important that we continue to make sure that there's a conscious effort to prepare our parks for seniors as well and make sure that there's senior opportunities as well at those facilities.
That's another I word, intergenerational.
Boom.
I like it.
7 syllables. I could.
Well, I'm going to try to not to put any pressure on the rest of you, but my hope is that everybody on the commission can give me one thought on this, and it doesn't have to be an I word, but if you can pull that off, then we get bonus credits.
I tell you, boy, falling behind these 2 or 3, I tell you, so just come up with some simple words, you know. But I think we're on a good path, you know. We, like I said, we looked into the future, and we seen that Murfreesboro is going to continue to grow. So we want to make sure that we're ready for this growth.
Mm-hmm.
Different parts of the city, you know, born and raised Murfreesboro, you know, I never would have thought that Murfreesboro would have been this way some 20 years ago when I was growing up, you know. I grew up with 2 high schools here, you know, now we got close to 10, and I'm sure there'll probably be another 10 in maybe in another 20 years. So we just got to keep expanding and looking to the future to still meet the needs of all the citizens who maybe live here now or maybe coming here in the future. Like I said, another 20 years, you know, believe it or not, I'll be a senior as well, you know, so I'm gonna need some facility, some facilities that cater to my needs as a senior, you know. So like Eddie said, we need to just continue to look at the needs of this growing community in all aspects, not only the people, but also the areas. I noticed that Rockville and Eagleville community is just really, really booming. I never thought that area would ever be developed, but that Veterans Parkway out that area is really developing too. I'm like, wow, you know, Barfield, you know, I remember when that was just a little dirt road, but all that's developed as well. So, but I think we're on top of it. So as we get ready to close in on 2035, and as we get closer to that period, then we'll start looking at 2055, so and so, and just keep it moving, you know.
I got an I word. Inviting.
Inviting. I like that.
I think we need to continue our hospitality as far as inviting the other folks in the state or the Southeast to come to our city and participate in tournaments and things of that nature.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
I think the chairman is also, we'd love to hear from you, Mr. Jernigan, if you've got an I word.
Everything we just talked about, if we're going to win every President's Cup between now and then, we've got to do all these things. Look, there's a reason we've won all of the ones before this.
Right.
It's because of everything that we just talked about. So, really, I mean, that's what I'm getting at. If we want to, we want to keep being recognized as the top department in the state, the top programs in the state, we've got to do all the things that we just talked about. And if we've done that, 20 years from now, we'll look back and we'll have the same success and recognition that we've had in the previous 15 to 20 years.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you all for that initial feedback. And as I said, this is kind of our first real steering committee meeting, and we're going to have several more. We will have, I think our next time before you will be in September. We also have an open house coming in September. But as I mentioned, this visioning session on Monday night is kind of our next nearest meeting that will be very valuable for getting public input.
Kevin, can you go over the logistics of that meeting one more time about location, time?
Yes, absolutely. So the visioning session meeting for the Park and Recreation Master Plan will be held at River Oaks Community Church, 210 Rucker Lane. That'll be from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. It'll be a rather informal setting, so if somebody can come and attend the whole meeting, great. But if you just have the opportunity to stop by, please do that. Don't feel like you've got to be there right when it starts or ends. We'll still have a chance to get your feedback. And that's, again, coming up Monday, July 16th, this coming Monday.
What church was that located at?
That's River Oaks Community Church on 210 Rucker Lane.
And just in case anybody watching didn't have their pencil in front of them, is there any place that they could go to, maybe on a city's website or a recreation website, that would have this information available?
MurfreesboroTN.gov would be a great website to go to. There's also Facebook, social media information out, and really looking from every angle. If you would all send personal emails and information out, that would also be helpful. If there are folks that just absolutely can't make that, there will be additional opportunities in venue for input. Working now on some different online survey type pieces or conversations and emails that we can share as a part of the process. I understand that everyone is not going to be available just on one night, so it is not a one-time piece, but a whole process.
Kevin, thanks.
Good.
Appreciate you being here.
I appreciate it. I'm going to touch on very quickly 4 more things. Do we have time for that? Or? Okay. I wanted to give you kind of a quick evaluation of what's been starting to rise to the surface from our inventory. These aren't conclusions. These are just things that we think are going to need further evaluation. But as the steering committee, just to kind of keep you in the know of what we're hearing, the partnerships idea is very strong. I mean, the partners we have are good. I think we need to look at ways we can continue to leverage that with stronger communication and maybe networking with our existing partners. That's something we want to further evaluate. We're hearing loud and clear that Murfreesboro Park and Recreation is more than just athletics and ball fields. There's a strong desire for people to see other things like the history component, the art component, community events, outdoor environmental activities, walking, biking, hiking, paddling. These are all things we're hearing pretty strong feedback on. I think we touched on this in, I know that this had been mentioned before, but it is going to be a real challenge to continue our operating and maintenance budgets to work. We need to continue to look at how to fit that into our growth. It's one thing to put capital aside to expand facilities. We also have to very aggressively think about how do we put aside the operating and maintenance budgets to continue to maintain those. So we'll continue to evaluate that and research that. There is a challenge just as much as we want to be inviting, and I think that was a great word Mr. Miller had presented. There's a challenge between meeting the demands of the people that are coming to our city, and as tournaments continue to be successful and increase in number, how do we anticipate the demands that those tournaments and those visitors place on our facilities and still make sure that the local residents and the community has access to the same quality? That's a challenge I think we're hearing from some of our feedback. And then there's also, we're hearing a lot of interest in the downtown. The idea that Parks and Recreation doesn't have to be strictly out in a suburban setting. Of course, we have some real jewels already with the Bradley Center, with Discovery Center, with Cannonsburg, with Oakland's. But there's been a lot of talk about how does Parks and Recreation fit in this synergy that we are starting to sense in the downtown area. So I just throw those out to you as food for thought. As I said, these aren't conclusions. These are just some initial feedback that we've been getting in. I wanted to update you as the steering committee as to kind of some of the things we're hearing. So that's all I have, and I can answer any questions or give further information if you need.
Anybody have anything else for Kevin? We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look forward to continuing our work.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll move now to item 2 on the agenda. That is a consideration of a restroom pavilion facility for Richard Siegel Park soccer fields 16 through 22. Angela?
Yes, thank you. Siegel Park Fields 16 through 22, the property formerly known as Practice Fields at Jordan Farm, was recently constructed. The Phase 1 portions, which include 6 fields, parking, and that access point into the park space. It did not include restroom facilities. We currently have portable toilets at that site. Phase 2 includes the restroom building and pavilion, like it's an attached pavilion as part of a single structure, as well as some sidewalks and site amenities. It also has significant utility needs. The scope of the proposal that I have in front of you now for professional services is to design that. It is with Griggs and Maloney to include surveys, studies, design and engineering service, contractual documents, as well as the bidding phase services. This project was funded, the Phase 2 portion, in part by a $250,000 grant from the local Parks and Recreation Fund administered by the Recreation Education Services Division of the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. In 2016, City Council approved a resolution to authorize the grant application and to commit 50% of the matching funds. Additional funding is currently allocated for the construction of this facility through our capital improvement plan. The proposal in front of you now is for professional services with Griggs and Maloney for $49,850. Welcome any questions.
Any questions for Angela? There are none. We need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Caroline Martin's with us. Caroline is going to tell us about the Patterson Community Center's 15th anniversary. You going to come up with her?
I just want to start out by saying good afternoon to this fine committee. We came today just to discuss about our 15-year anniversary. Back here in 2013, we had our 10-year anniversary, and it was real successful. And the theme was 10 years strong. Now, 5 years later, which is 2018, we want to celebrate our 15-year anniversary, and our theme this year is 15 years stronger. And we want everyone to understand that we just want to celebrate and give back to the community. We feel like we're very successful in the 5 years, and just from hearing everything so far that, you know, with a community like Murfreesboro, people do want to come and enjoy themselves. So we want to have that day, August the 18th, a free day to the community and the kids and the patron. Let them enjoy themselves. And just like I say, I got brought along with me two of my co-workers, which is Heather and Caroline. So I would like to introduce to some and present to others. Heather Mothen, she is our assistant facility coordinator, and then I got Caroline Martin, which is our assistant program coordinator, and they're gonna announce about our activity and event for that day. So I turn it over to Caroline and Heather.
Hi, I'm Caroline, and I would like to thank you all for allowing me to come to speak with you today. As you know, Patterson Park is named after Dr. James Patterson. He was very active in the community, and as we celebrate our 15th anniversary, we are continuing to his legacy and working in the community and building our community.
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's actually going to happen that day. So the whole reason that we're having this celebration and event is to thank the community for 15 years. And we've built that community center 15 years stronger, and we're celebrating 15 years of building community. So it's going to be a completely free day for anyone who comes. We're going to have activities and games for all ages, giveaways. We're going to be doing tours of our facility. Some of you may know, but we have rental spaces inside of Patterson that get utilized, but we want everybody to know that our community center is there for them. And so that's part of this day too, is to kind of put on display what we have to offer at the community center, and to also thank everyone in our community for helping us get to where we are today. So we will have giveaways, we'll have guest speakers, we'll have live entertainment. And it's free, so come out. If you have any questions, you can find a Facebook event on Facebook, or go to the website, www.murfreesborotn.gov, or you can always call us at Patterson with any questions, and our number is 615-893-7439. Thank you guys for having us here today.
Sounds like a great event. Appreciate all y'all being with us. Becky, as always, you're going to wrap us up with program and activity updates.
Just take me a second to pull up my presentation. All right. First, we're going to start with our ongoing summer program, Movies Under the Stars. We have 3 remaining weeks, so we encourage people, if they haven't been out, to join us for Movies Under the Stars. It's the same movie for a whole week, but they have a choice of venues. Mondays, they can go to Barfield Crescent Park. Tuesdays, Cannonsburg Village. Thursdays, Richard Siegel Neighborhood Park. Fridays, Cason Lane Trailhead. And Saturdays, the Fountains at Gateway. The movie starts at 8:30, and we encourage people to bring chairs, blankets, snacks, or they can purchase concessions. Next, we have 2 more times for our Splash Out program. They can join us tomorrow, which is July 12th at Barfield Crescent Park. We'll be near Pavilions 5, 6, and 7 from 1:30 to 3. And then again on Thursday, July 26th at Old Fort Park. And that's where we cordon off part of a parking lot, and the Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Department comes out and brings a fire truck, and they spray water in the air, and the kids just get to run around and get wet in this summer heat. And then this weekend, we have our Uncle Dave Macon Days Festival. It is the 40th annual Uncle Dave Macon Days, and it will be Friday and Saturday, that is July 13th and 14th at Cannonsburg Village. And the tickets are $10. You can buy them at the door, or you can get them ahead of time online for Uncle Dave Macon Days. Then next Wednesday, July 18th, we have our Flick and Float. We'll show a movie which starts at 8:30 out at Burrow Beach, but the doors do open at 7, so if the kids want to come and splash around with the water features for a while before the movie starts, and they can either watch poolside, they can sit on a blanket or in a chair, or they can bring a float and float in the pool and literally watch the movie from the water. There is a fee for that. That is $7 for adults, $5 for youth and seniors, and the doors open at 7 p.m. Wednesday, July 18th. Then we also have our third Friday night concerts at Cannonsburg Village. The next one will be Friday, July 20th, and Chris Gantry will be the presenter for the concert. It's from 7 to 9. It's free to attend. Just bring a lawn chair or a blanket to Cannonsburg Village for the third Friday night concert from 7 to 9. Then we have our Island Fun Run, which will be Wednesday, July 25th from 7 to 8 p.m. It's at the Gateway Island and Trail, and you just come on out and run or walk around the island. We'll have some giveaways. It's just a fun time to get out and enjoy our Gateway Island. We also would like people to know that we still have sign-ups for a few more days for our Murfreesboro Football League for the youth football program and cheerleading. And we encourage people to contact our athletics department if they are interested in this program or have any questions, but you can register online through murfreesborotn.gov/athletics. And for more information on all those programs and events and everything else that we have going on, they can contact our main office, go to murfreesborotn.gov/parks, pick up a rec connection, or like one of our Facebook pages.
All right. Thanks, Becky. As always, a lot going on. Okay. Is there any other business to come before the commission? If there is none, we stand adjourned. Thanks to everybody.